The moment we take ownership and say it's my fault, we gain the power over the situation. Warren Buffett said, one of the most important decisions you'll ever make is who you marry. An investor and a waster are building two different homes. If you handed a check for $1 million to someone with very poor habits, we know exactly what's going to happen. Parkinson's law says that expenses rise to meet income. A lot of people seem to think that knowing it is enough, and it's not. You take the stuff that you're learning and you do something with it. And in the sales game, I believe doing something with it is just.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your host, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you again. Looking forward to, of course, another great episode. This time we're going to be talking about habits that keep you poor. And that is a provoking title, and we're looking forward to a great conversation today. It will just be the two of us. So we're going back and forth about some of these habits and what they could mean in your life. And if you spot some, you might also spot some lack of money. So, or maybe some other things that are going along with it. We will get into that content here in a bit. Before we do, of course, our quote, a little bit of a talking, some review highlights, and then the meat of the show. Stay tuned for that. So let's kick it off with our quote, Mr. Brian.
Instead of trying to get rich, let's try not to be poor. This is what poor people do. They start many projects, they finish none. They think that understanding the basics and doing the basics are the same thing. They assume that friends will act like friends when it comes to money. We know better though, don't we, Nate? They make promises, then break them, especially promises to themselves and to Waste No Day podcast hosts when 2 times in a row they were supposed to come on the show and they rescheduled on us 2 times in a row. The day of. Not pointing any elbows at Weldon Long or anybody, but they assume that anyone making money is smarter than them or somehow get a head start that they didn't have. They're easily distracted. They prioritize looking smart over acting smart. And they think that asking for help means that they are helpless. They expect things to be easy. And when they're not, they quit. They trust unsuccessful people they know blindly. They blame anything besides themselves for their own problems. They look for one thing to solve all of their problems. They believe their own BS. And to top it all off, they get married to someone who spends more money than they make. The one and only Alex Hormozi. That was a long one.
It's not often that the quote reveals pretty much the entire section of the show that we'll be discussing tonight, but there it is, laid out.
Yeah, there were some kicks in the gut there, some mouth punches for me, both obviously looking back on someone I used to be at various parts of my life too. Like I can look back, and then 1 or 2 of them even hit home for me today where, well, we'll talk about it when we get there, but there was meat in that saying for me from as early as I can remember to sitting here talking to you today. I can take a lot out of that quote. So.
Yeah, it's a quote that is packed full of just really important information and reflective information. That's really what we're going to be digesting today and expounding upon. Of course, it's not our own quote. It's from Mr. Hormozi, but we are going to be using it as conversational pieces for the topic of this episode, and looking forward to that. Before we get into the meat of the show, as we always like to do, we like to take a bit of a moment to highlight somebody who has given us a review, and we celebrate that and give them the credit that they are due by reading it live on the show or recorded on the show, depending on when you're listening. And we have none other than that same reflective moment on this episode. Brian, who are we highlighting today?
Took the leash off. 5 stars. Back then, I was just grinding out HVAC maintenance calls. Now, I'm running the IAQ game at Excalibur Services. supervising, estimating, leading, and doubling targets like it's expected. In May alone, I brought in over $100,000, putting us $56,000 ahead for the quarter.
All right.
Waste No Day did not hand me motivation. It slapped me with it. Yeah. It made me think differently, work differently, and win louder. If you're cool staying average, don't listen. But if you're ready to level up and leave excuses behind, this podcast is the spark. Yeah, that was it, buddy. Good stuff.
Who's it from, Brian?
Yeah, I passed that part over.
So that was a long review.
The Ducked Man Loren.
All right.
Yeah.
Love the name too.
That was May 31st, 2025. We're catching up.
There you go. Only almost, a year behind.
We're almost a year out. Yeah, as long as we don't get a written review a week for a little while, we can get caught up to within 1 year.
That's no excuse for you people who haven't reviewed us yet to not give us a review. Just go ahead and do that. We'll figure it out.
We challenge you to not let us get there. Pop those reviews.
I like it. Getting slapped in the face with motivation. That's not something that I'm frequently hearing, but it's good, and I'm here for it.
I am. Yeah, I felt like I was slapped in the face with the Alex Hormozi quote we're breaking down today. And I thought for a cool episode, let's just break it down in pieces.
Let's do it.
Of each part of that quote and just touch on it a little bit. And I even put a quote together for most of them. My kids are home 15 minutes early from jiu-jitsu. I put a quote together for most of those individually of just ones that were either on the top of my head or ones I searched up. So I'm pumped about it.
Well, I am too. Thank you for the quote, sir. We do appreciate that. And what a great one it was. We're going to get to the meat of the show now, and we're going to just jump right into the topic here, which is around the idea of habits that keep us poor. And we'll kind of be dissecting that quote that Hormozi said and Brian read at the beginning of the episode. And we're going to start it off here by rereading the first part of it, which says, number one, instead of trying to get rich, try to not be poor, which is certainly an inverse of what a lot of people strive for. And then it goes into kind of these ideas about what poor people do. And the first one that he says is that they start many projects and finish none. And, Brian, a while ago when we were working together on the same management team, we took a test, a personality test called the Kolbe, Kolbe, I believe. I don't remember if it had another part of it, but the Kolbe test.
The Kolbe Index, yes.
Kolbe Index, there you go. Thank you. So essentially it was a number of questions that narrowed down your personality type to 4 different quadrants, and then it gave you kind of like a rating in those quadrants. And, if you were high in the quadrant, it meant that you were very much that type of a person. Well, I remember that at that particular time, I served on the management team of, I think, 5 people. And let's just say that I was an outlier in personality for the Kolbe Index, while many people on the management team were quick starters, as they would say, Brian.
10 quick start, 3 follow through. That's me.
Yes, which I was pretty much the opposite of that.
Yeah, that's an integrator born in the EOS world.
Yes.
2 quick start, 9 follow through, I think is what yours was.
Something like I still have on my desk, but that I don't know that necessarily is indicative of whether I'm planning to be poor or not, or Brian is planning to be poor or not. But I think it is important to recognize as something that can be really detrimental to you, because if you never finish anything, well, first of all, you're not going to get very far, but also you never get that endorphin rush of accomplishment. Like you never get to check the box. And maybe it's just me and my personality, but that would drive me insane. It's like starting a puzzle and never putting it together, getting 3/4 of the way and then just scrapping it, or reading a book and never finishing the last chapter, starting a movie, never getting to the last concluding scene. Like all these things would just drive me crazy. But think of that when it comes to in application of your life. How many projects are you starting? How many, IKEA pieces of furniture are still sitting in the box in your garage? Speaking of your garage, what's that garage look like right now? And how many times have you sworn that you were going to go organize it? Or that landscape project that your wife wants you to do outside, or that theme park that the kids want you to take them to, or whatever. And it's just all these things that we end up saying, yeah, I'm going to do that, or maybe even actually make some type of an action towards it. But then for one reason or another, you either get distracted, you get bored, it becomes too difficult, which Hormozi goes into later, and so on and so forth. And so you end up being this habitual starter, but never finishing.
Yeah, and tonight, we're not going to talk about money, but I think if money is the scoreboard all of everything that we're doing career-wise, and I think it might not be the only metric, but it is a scoreboard for us in our career. We're not going to talk much about it, but what we're going to talk about is habits, and I would say that's because if you handed a check for $1 million net, taxes are already paid, to someone with very poor habits, we know exactly what's going to happen because we have seen those people win the lottery over and over and over again. Eventually, and I don't mean 50 years from now, eventually, like probably in less than 5 years, they're going to be broke again. And oftentimes they're going to be broke and in debt because the same habits they had when they got that money, they kept going with, and now they just amplified the heck out of those habits because they had money and they built a lifestyle for themselves that oftentimes with these lottery winners, they then go into debt to maintain this lifestyle. And everybody thinks it won't happen to them, but you can prove whether it will or not by asking yourself if you're a victim of Parkinson's law or whichever derivative of Parkinson's law says that expenses rise to meet income. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to boot camp a second time saying they made a lot more money after the first one, but oftentimes they blame their wives. I'm like, maybe that's part of it, but I don't believe it's fully one-sided, but they're like, yeah, we just spend more now, so I got to make more. So I'm back. Like, let's pick it back up and blow this thing up again. And I'm like all for it, but I'm talking to a financial advisor right now, our financial advisor, and guy we met at the Clover mastermind with Josh and Laura Kelly. It was just a phenomenal talk he did about building your financial future wherever you're at financially, and at the Clover mastermind, we spend 2 days figuring out how to better build the business to set ourselves up financially later. And then they ended it with JW Rayhan's coming on and talking to all of us about how we're setting ourselves up for the future. Not like how we're setting up our funds that will come later when we're all wealthy, but now how we started this morning with whatever we have, right? And it was a great talk. We set up a meeting with him on the spot and then met with him. Now we meet with them at least once a quarter and get a really clear picture of our financial situation, which is fairly complex, but they force you into things like trust and setting up the kids and making sure that if something happens to me and Amelia on a flight to a boot camp, everybody's taken care of, everything's set up and is at least, financially as much as it can be for the future. And you think about these things, but you don't really nail them down until you're kind of sitting in a room with somebody who's guilt tripping the crap out of you to do it, Yeah. But now Amelia worried about this stuff all the time. She was always nervous when we took flights together because if the plane crashed, what happens to the kids? I'm like, they're fine. They got a way better start than I did. Like, what? Please. Like, they knew me for all this time, so they're cool, right? So we put the financial plan in place and nailed down everything we wanted to nail down so they're going to be well cared for, right? And this is one of those things that needed to happen well before wealth showed up and plans in place. Like, if we see this kind of money next year, and we did this in 2024, and if we see this kind of money in 2025, what happens to it, right? So we build these buckets, and some goes here, and this goes here, and this goes here, and this goes to the future, and this goes to our financial freedom plan, and this goes to retirement. And I don't just mean like an IRA, I mean investment accounts and whatever. But it's building habits that make sure that if the best case scenario happens financially, we're ready to make the best out of it. Otherwise, we'll be the lottery winners, right? We'll be broke and in debt, trying to maintain a lifestyle that we couldn't really afford and weren't ready for. And if you handed $1 to someone with great habits, they're going to build something out of it, right? So Alex's first one was, instead of trying to get rich, at least in the meantime, I think he meant, like, for now, 22-year-old electrician who's maybe going to make six figures, 100,000 for the first time in his life this year. You're not going to become a billionaire with that in 2027, but you can at least try not to be poor. And the more I thought about that quote over the last week, because I used it in our Monday meeting, I used it in Wiser Wednesday, I used it in the Thursday Q&A, thought about it more over the weekend, the more I realized he wasn't really talking about income anyway, right? He's talking about our behavior that we fall back on time and time again. And then, so really the first rule of it, what poor people do, was, as Nate said, starting everything, finishing nothing. Most people don't have a shortage of ideas, right? Just about everyone I know has tons of ideas. Here's what happens with most of the ideas of most people in the world today. I have a good idea. I tap 3 people on the shoulder and whisper it to them, and they tell me what a good idea it is. Fist bump. I feel as good as I would if I had actually executed on the idea, and I walk away like, yep, I'm a genius. I'm awesome. And then 2 years later, somebody did something with that idea, and I go, that was my idea. Like, like everyone you hear every time someone says, we should make like a Yelp review system for crappy clients. And, you make that Facebook post right now. I guarantee 50 people are going to say, I thought of that in 2006, right? Because everybody's had that idea. Like, why are we the only ones getting reviewed? Why aren't clients getting reviewed? And the reason is because most contractors treat clients like crap, and when they get treated like crap back, they think the client's an a-hole. We saw this firsthand with our buddy from A1 Garage Door, Justin Tatum. 2 techs went to his house. I was talking to him the entire time. One tech treated him like royalty and his family and his home. The other one just walked in like he owned the place and started making demands and treated him like crap. And one guy got the business and one guy got sent packing. And I guarantee tech number 1 told all his friends about what a cool bro he met today and how he got this nice job and what a great family. And the other one called his wife on the way home and talked about what an a-hole this guy was, right? And both are true, right? Perspective is reality. But whose fault was it? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's the reason we don't do a reverse Yelp, because you treat your client like crap, and then when they're jerks to you, you think you should be able to go rate them somewhere. I still want to go see that client. I don't care how they treated you, but you probably deserved it. That's my opinion. So I still want to go see them. So I don't care about your client Yelp review. So people
Brian,
have a go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
People have a shortage of completed projects. And this one for me was the most, the biggest punch in the mouth for previous me. Really going up to probably 2024 when we started the boot camp and then interviewed Brian Tracy. And he really convinced me to start bluecollarcloser.com. That was Brian Tracy prodding and pushing and really guilt tripping me, if nothing else, that people who want to do business with us should have a way that they can do business with us. And I told him about the boot camps we were planning. He's like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something online, some kind of course where all of your knowledge is available in a vault that they can go visit anytime they want to or feel like they need to. And I was like, yeah, he's absolutely right. And I sat there filling one of my yellow notepads with notes after Brian and I hung up. And I don't know, that was December. I don't think I took the first real step until February of 2025. And it almost just became one more of those uncompleted projects. And then, we're building out this ridiculously amazing role play arcade inside Blue Collar Closer right now. A lot of people in the community are getting early access to it right now to stress test and find the glitches and make sure everything's working. And the things they are saying is, oh my gosh, some of the objections it's coming up with are so high level. And then I think I'm talking to a human being and I get kind of shy or nervous like I would at the kitchen table. And then I remember I'm not. So I come up with something and just say it. And it feels so empowering to just say, either type out the thing or voice to text it. And then the bot will take like a one Mississippi and it'll audibly speak an answer to you in 4 different bots. You choose which one you want to use, which is disc or core profile based. Our CEO, the D, our optimist, the I, our reassurer, the S, and our engineer, Nate, Calvin Calculist, who's the
That's
C.
me.
And each of them speak and listen in their own personality. So what one of them would take as a huge compliment and love you for speaking to him that way would really put off another one. And you have to direct your verbiage to who you're talking to. And you get to know these personalities so much better. Anyway, I'm really excited about that right now. And this is one of those things I've been tinkering with forever. And what the heck is it? Early June. So probably mid-April, I would say, I made a commitment to myself to like, this thing's getting done before the July boot camp. We have a Waste No Day boot camp coming July 17th and 18th on the beach again, Atlantic City, New Jersey, this time at the Ocean Casino Resort. VIP is nice and sold out, but there are still some general admission tickets available. I don't know if there are any hotel rooms available at the Ocean Casino Resort. If so, hurry up and snatch them up, because a place like that on the beach in July, they're going to be gone pretty quickly. So hurry up and snatch them up. But wastenodaybootcamp.com, get a look, and you can join us. But my goal was to have this thing completed by boot camp. And, I thought I had it done, and then I had Nate and a couple other people do some stress testing, and Nate was able to find glitches. I mean, who else do you need, right? He's like, he's a contrarian by nature. So he's even when you don't ask him to stress test him, he's looking for the mistakes. So
sigh. Yes.
Yes, that's who Nate is. And then he's an engineer by nature. So he's a Calvin Calculus, like our role play bot. So one thing I love about Nate, and I've always enjoyed about having Nate around and on a leadership team with me, is he sees the good and he's quick to point it out, and he sees the negative and he is just as quick to point it out. So you don't really get flattery from Nate. You'll get complimented and you'll get gratitude when you deserve it. And when you don't deserve it, he'll let you know. And he's not trying to be mean, despite what many of the technicians who work for him think. he just walks around telling you how it is at all times. And he's a finisher. He's a follow through guy. The reason we work so well together is I have 1,000 ideas a minute. and he's a sifter. He's a filter that I can put the ideas through, and he'll tell me, this doesn't work. This is going to be too much money. This is going to take 20 times longer than you think it is. This isn't even a good idea. Where'd you come up with this crap? And I need that, because otherwise we're going to spend money and take action on everything that pops into my head. And there's plenty of space in there. So a lot of things are popping in.
You know, Brian, a minute ago, you mentioned Parkinson's law, and that reminded me of an interview. Speaking of interviews, one of your favorites was, of course, Brian Tracy. One of my favorites was Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and we were interviewing him regarding his book, The Science of Scaling. And in that, he talked about Parkinson's law, but instead of relevant to money, he talked about relevant to time, meaning that however long you attribute to a project timeline is how long it will take to get there. And he was talking about, you know, in the space race and like how fast America was requiring their scientists and mathematicians to work because it was a race. And so what could have taken, you know, probably 30 years, they were trying to condense down into like 3 years, you know, which was, I'm sure, throwing a bunch of scientists and mathematicians for absolute chaotic loops. But this is the whole concept about you can go a whole lot faster than you think you can, simply if you set the timeline more aggressive. And that kind of segues into the second part of the quote, which is that those who think that they understand the basics and doing the basics are not the same thing. I mean, they're not the same thing. If you understanding the basics and actually doing the basics are not the same thing. And it's people who get those either twisted or reversed, who find themselves, unfortunately, not necessarily striving to be poor, but ending up there, because it comes down to execution in many ways of what Brian was talking about. You can't just be an idea person. You can't just be someone who has like 1,000 ideas and never accomplishes any of them. And you also can't be somebody who says like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to do that, but never do it.
Yeah.
So there's something to that execution of actually being able to work through doing the basics.
Yeah, it's people with all the answers to the sales questions. They've read all the books. They know all the authors. They can quote the YouTube videos, and are lagging around 45% conversion rate. And even when they do sell, it's not a very big job, right? It's like, that's great that you know the answers to all the questions. Now do it. And it's tough. This was one of those that hit me as well. It's like, all the things in business, all the things in my marriage, all the things as a father that I know the answers to the questions. And then I start taking stock of how many of the answers I'm actually executing on a daily basis. And it's like, And then I start hating Alex Hormozi and his stupid quote, right? But before we get to this one, I had a quote for the last one, because Mark Twain said, the secret of getting ahead is getting started, is to start less and finish more. Yeah. And the secret to getting started is to break your big task down into little tasks and start attacking the little tasks. And I think if you would go on in that quote, I didn't, it's probably where he got to the eat that frog quote, right? If the worst thing you have to do today is eat a live frog, do it first thing in the morning. The rest of your day is going to be easy. And if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugly one first.
Love that.
And Brian Tracy wrote a book on that. I believe it's still the best-selling book all time on time management, called Eat That Frog. Although I bet Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time has to be giving it a run, because that book is amazing.
I just recommended it the other day. Yeah.
That book's just phenomenal. Both of them are great. And they're different enough that you can read both of them and not have wasted a moment. Right. Knowing versus doing. And that reminds me always of Aaron Gaynor's quote on Waste No Day, where he was talking about kind of the mind trap of doing lots of podcasts and reading lots of books and attending lots of seminars, watching lots of videos, where you get stuck in learn mode and you never elevate yourself to execute mode, and it's an elevation, right? And it's not like pressing the button on an elevator elevation. It's like doing a full muscle up on a ladder with a big gap between the rungs. It's a lot of work to yank yourself up into execution mode, but it's so worth it, right? You take the stuff that you're learning and you do something with it. And in the sales game, I believe, to begin with, that doing something with it is just setting aside calendar time to role play it, and then role play it until you're amazing at it. And then go out into the home and take what you role played and execute it exactly how you role played it. Not bending and molding it to the situation. Execute it exactly how you role played it. And then remember, do it 10 times. It takes 10 times for it to work. And by the time you've executed it 10 times, it's going to be so natural for you. It's not even going to feel like role playing anymore. And you're just going to be a killer. And this is what really high level, amazing salespeople, negotiators, and communicators do. They take concepts that they hear or read or see once, and then they practice them until they're internalized and they're their own. And then they go out and execute it in the home or wherever it is that they sell. This is how it works. And a lot of people seem to think that knowing it is enough. And it's not. You'll write a great book one day, but you won't have the proof to back it up. So nobody's going to read it. That's where you want to go.
A little bit of confession time for me, Brian. So my boys, my two oldest boys are really into football cards, specifically my second oldest son. And like, they're always interested in like what's coming out and new players, new cards, new all this. And so one of my boys' friends, he's also into football cards, and he alerted my son to two different apps that you can use. The one is called Collex, and it's for basically selling trade cards, like football cards, baseball cards, all that type of stuff. So like I let him get an account, and like that was pretty easy. It's kind of like eBay, but specifically for cards and those types of things. And okay, so you know he got some cards, sold some cards on there. But then his friend told him about doing live auctions on Whatnot, which is another app where you do live auctions. There's like a bid system. You're holding the card in front of the camera this whole time. Like, you know, you're basically riffing off the top of your head on like what the card is. You have to know your stuff because it's all live. People are purchasing the cards as you're holding them. There's an entire mechanic system because like as soon as the card sells, you have to like write it down and, you know, put it to the side, and then you're going right back at it because it's about interactions, and the more people are watching your stream, the more popularity you gain from it and all that. And so my boy wanted to do this, and I'm like, this seems like a lot, right? And so he was over at his friend's house, and his friend's dad did it, and I watched their stream. I'm like, okay, like this seems like something that we could try, but it was really good to like watch it. And I was trying to do some reading, and I was trying to watch like YouTube videos about tutorials and read all this kind of stuff. And I tell you what, Brian, we did it. And I was like furious the whole time. I was so frustrated. I didn't know what I was doing. I was super stressed out. Like you had to figure out shipping profiles and all this stuff. And then at the end of the auction, which was like 2 hours long, they made like $40, which was insane because, you know, there's like 5 people watching. Then I had to figure out how to ship all this stuff and print out shipping labels and get bubble mailers and all this stuff. And it was just such a pain. And so right there is the difference between why people stop at the academics and never go forward with the execution. Because the execution is where the frustration lies, and the fear and the challenge and the annoyance, but also the growth, right? And so because I finally pushed into it, because I did something that was somewhat embarrassing and certainly frustrating and stressful and cost money and all this stuff, I at least accomplished knocking down that hurdle and would be more likely to do it a second time. Now, you know, there's also some things where I'm like, I don't really need to do that again because it was too much for me. but I still stepped into it. I stepped in it, not really for me, for my sons, they wanted to do it. And so I stepped into it. But that's where people get hung up with saying, hey, I know the basics. I watched the YouTube videos. I read the manual. I studied the book. I've seen other people do it. I don't need to do it. I don't want to do it. Well, a lot of times that's just camouflage for your own fear, your own insecurities, your own baggage. And so challenging yourself to step outside of that comfort zone and actually move from academics to execution, admittedly, is difficult and stressful, but it's also where the growth is. And I think in many ways, that's where Hormozi is saying, like, you want to be poor, stay in academic world.
Yeah, and most people know what to do to get better, right? It's eat better. I think at a time it was save money. But with inflation, the inflation we've seen since 2020, I think the save money thing's I don't know how that's going to get you ahead. I think saving money versus just blowing it on stupid stuff. Obviously there's merit there, but I think now it's invest money in real things, whatever that real thing is, whether it's the S&P 500 or real estate, or for me, what I've always invested in that I've seen returns that you can't see in anything else that I know of, which is improvement and getting better, and seminars and courses and books, and just putting money into self-development. And really that thing where I'm like, I'm here and somebody else is here and somebody else has a course on how I get there. I'm taking it. I'm spending that money. I'm heading over there, right? And we were talking about J.W. Rahans earlier and meeting him at the first Clover mastermind that we went to, and we ended up going to 2 of them. But that was one of those things, man. It was a tough time to spend the money to be there, and we made the call and just did it anyway, and we're super glad we did for what we got out of that. Even if you just get to be around Josh and Laura Kelly for 2 days, you're putting yourself way ahead of the game, right? Now, add in all these other people that they brought in to be there, like Josh's dad, Paul Kelly, and Daryl Bingham, and got to meet some really cool people that I didn't know before, like Sammy from Apex in Ohio. And I don't know, there was a lot of people, but yeah, it's these kind of things. So you get this knowledge bump, you get this skill bump. And oftentimes when you come together with a group of like-minded people, you get this relationship bump, and you make relationships with people who move you faster in the direction you wanted to move in. And I don't mean necessarily the people you paid to be there. I mean the people that you rub elbows with and you make relationships with. And all of a sudden you have somebody lighting a fire under you on a regular basis, holding you accountable, and you're doing the same for them. So eat better, invest money, make the call, have the conversation, knock on more doors, get out of your house, right? The gap is rarely knowledge. The gap is execution, as Aaron Gaynor said. Stephen Covey said, to know and not do is really not to know, right? So what good was your knowledge if it dies with you? I mean, knowledge without action, especially today, because things are entertaining anymore, right? I feel like you can listen to this show and you can be fairly entertained. You can have a good time driving from one call to the next, getting the knowledge we give you in the way that we deliver it. I believe, or at least we try to make it somewhat entertaining. So we're not putting you to sleep. At least we hope. We don't really know. Right? But if it never gets executed on, it never becomes anything. It was just that. It was just entertainment. You might as well listen to stand-up comedy where the comic has some really boring guys sitting next to him the whole time. Right?
You're not insinuating anything, are you, Brian?
No, not at all. Just saying.
Speaking of money, though, there's actually 2 parts of Hormozi's quote that are relevant to that. And it says that What poor people do is they assume friends will act like friends when it comes to money, and they assume that anyone making money is smarter than them or somehow got a head start that they didn't have. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I've been there myself, where like not when I was young so much. Like I had the thing when I was young, and anytime we would see in Detroit, we would see a nice car go by, it would be like his dad's got money. Like you couldn't even see, the windows are tinted. You didn't even know if it was a dude driving. But the circle around me would be like, yeah, it must be nice to have a dad with money. And I would think that, like, yeah, obviously, because, you know, what are you doing with a car like that, especially if it was someone young, especially in the hood, or it's a drug dealer, right? Because there was quite a bit of that in the late 80s and early 90s in Detroit. Probably still is. I wouldn't know because I don't go. But there was a ton of that in the early 90s. But I had this curiosity. I was like, I don't care what he does. Like, I don't care if his dad's rich. I don't care if he's dealing drugs. I feel like there's probably, like, he's a landlord because that was a big deal when I was a kid. If you were a landlord and you owned houses and people like my family paid you to live in it, that felt like a big deal to me. And I wanted to know more about it, right? I wanted to know how you're doing what you're doing. So I would dig into it a little bit more. I would get around guys that have money, try to hear more about them. But sorry, buddy, that threw me. Out. It sounded like you were talking to me. I could just your voice got a little squeakier. Yeah. Anyway, Jim Rohn, discipline weighs ounces. I'll say pounds, right? But Jim Rohn said ounces. And regret weighs tons. And I think the big problem for most people is we don't really see the regret of the choices we didn't make until we're probably too old to do anything about it. Unless we take some big steps to better ourselves and further ourselves. And then if you're like me, in the times that I took big steps to get better and cut laziness off of myself in whatever way that looked like, right? Make myself go to the gym. Make myself forego whatever show is captivating the world right now because I need to be working. And that's the evenings during the week and on the weekend. Like we can be watching something, we can be doing something, but I need to be putting this role play arcade together. This needs to be built, and I'm doing the majority of it and in contact with all of the companies that are responsible for building various portions of it. So I'm juggling all this and it has to get done. And when it gets done, like Blue Collar Closer, like the boot camps, like Waste No Day, I'll have the opportunity to sit back and look over it and breathe. Sorry, the dog's going crazy because somebody rang the doorbell. I'll get to look over it and breathe and just nod my head like, yeah, like, you know, we did that. What's up? Like, This is awesome. And then this thing always hits me where I look back at the months, say, between the role play arcade getting built and us rolling out, opening the doors of Blue Collar Closer. And I'll look at the few months where I wasn't really hardcore building anything. I was just coasting a little bit and licking my wounds from the weeks of 3 hours of sleep a night while building, getting ready to open Blue Collar Closer. And I'll look at that time and go, oh man, imagine if I had that time to have been putting it into this other thing that I was trying to do. And I used to do it too when I broke through a plateau of revenue or income when I was in a truck. By working through it, by working really hard to get through it, by going, I always get stuck here, right here. This gets me every time. How can I get through it? And I'm going to all the free seminars that Vegas would offer, and there were a lot of them. in like the real estate sales game and stuff back in the early 2000s. And I was paying to go to Tom Hopkins and the more established guys. And I'm just like, here's the thing I got in a plumbing call. I have someone who has a need. They can afford it pretty clearly. And I'm getting stuck right here. And oftentimes I would get the help I needed and realize it always, because I assumed it was something I'm doing, right? Because how did I go to my notepad? Could someone else, the best salesperson on earth, have sold this call? Answer, Nate?
Yes, sir.
Yes, 100% of the time. Yes. Okay, how? Most of the time I can come up with a way. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know. And I would take it to somebody better than me, and they would give me the answer, and I would figure it out how to do it myself, and I would do it. And then I would look back on all the time that my lazy, useless carcass just took that no, and how many jobs that was. And now knowing what I know and having the ability I have, I could have closed maybe 80% of those. And how much downtime I had, how much time at the shop I had when I could have been installing that work, how much money I lost, how much revenue the team lost, and how that client might have gone and gotten that from some cheap Charlie who did a crap job and then didn't honor their warranty. And now they just think all plumbers suck, right? And I look back on that time and I'm like, man, do I wish I had that wasted time back. And Jim Rohn's right. The regret weighs tons. And I'll say discipline weighs a little bit more than ounces, right? Because trying to get that new habit fully established, that weighs pounds. There might even be tons in there, depending on what the habit is. I know that getting to the gym early on was a habit that weighed tons, because probably the biggest part that I had a big struggle with was I just felt embarrassed walking into the gym. You know what I mean, Nate? I know.
Every day.
Those arms, right? With those arms. Yeah. If I had your arms, bro, I'd never go. Yeah, I would be embarrassed walking into the gym, even though, funny enough, when I'd first go into the gym, I would expect 17 Arnold Schwarzeneggers standing around, and there's always like one dude who's just like on another level, maybe two, but the majority of people are just freaking people, right? They're skinny, fat bros with gloves on a Smith machine, right? They're not serious lifters. But it doesn't matter, because you just walk in and feel like the spotlight's on you and you're embarrassed. And I didn't really know how to lift weights till I went through rehab. But at the end of the day, it's what I tell everybody: just go lift, just start lifting.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, go grab the serious lifter. The serious lifter loves to answer the questions of the new guy in the gym. And I mean that for men and women. Women might want to scale it back on going to ask the lunk guy, because you're probably gonna think you're hitting on him. But go ask the most fit woman in the gym whatever question you have. She's gonna answer you. And guys, go ask the most fit jacked dude in the gym, and he's going to answer you. And this seems to be the case for everything we do, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the most important time, I was just planting some plants tonight before the podcast, and the most important time of that plant's life is how much I water it for like the next 10 days until it becomes established, until it gets a root system, until it can actually feed off of the ground. And so just like a habit, the most important time of that habit is the initial 10 days or 20 days or whatever you want to call it of that habit's life, where it needs to be watered for it to grow.
Yeah. They say it takes 21 days to establish.
21 days, yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. I feel like it takes 1 day to establish a new habit. And then James Clear in Atomic Habits said, 1 day of a missed habit is a mistake. 2 days is the start of a new habit.
Yep, there you go.
So it either takes 1 day or two to make a new habit. But when the decision's made and you just say, I'm freaking doing it, then you're just doing it. And shout out to my man, Kyle Brewer. I don't even know if he listens to Waste No Day anymore. Our office manager at the shop told me last week that as of Monday, he's back in the gym. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before, bro. And, he was just a little happier today. He was a little more confident today. He was a little more talkative. And I don't know, within 3.5 minutes of saying good morning to him, he was like, made it to the gym today.
There you go. Yeah. Get that swagger back.
Yeah. Pick that little arm up and give me a fist bump, buddy. Yeah, it's so nice getting out for a while and getting back in. I recently had 11 days off the gym because I was just sick with something that didn't keep me out of work, but had me feeling crappy and sleeping like 3.5, 4 hours a night, just feeling miserable. Like CPAP wasn't helping. Nothing was really helping. And then snapped and then went back to the gym and obviously did chest day because I'm a man.
What's a leg day?
I don't know. I don't know what these leg days are. And it was glorious, man. I stayed doing band work to keep my shoulders warmed up so I don't get back in and pull something. But got back in, hit it hard, and just felt like a freaking $1,000,000, man. Slayed everything I came in contact with that day. Problems got solved, big things got taken care of, and it was just a wonderful feeling after 11 days out of the gym.
There you go. And part of that, Brian, is the commitment that it takes to do something like that, whether it's the gym or a different type of discipline, which is kind of what Hormozi talks about is another habit of poor people, and that is that they make promises and then they break them. And he goes on to talk about another couple other ideas here, that they're easily distracted. They prioritize looking smart over acting smart, and they think that asking for help means that they are helpless. So I think a lot of those kind of play off of one another in terms of our commitment level, right? And what our level of determination is, as well as are we being distracted, which is like the alternative to commitment. And then this last one where he talked about they prioritize looking smart over acting smart, which, man, in a day of influencers and like social media and all this crap, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody thinks that their word is, carries the most weight. Nobody thinks that their crap stinks. Like, it is just so full. We're so full of ourselves, and it's all about the image. It's all about how you look online or whatever your profile or portfolio or social group is. It doesn't even matter if it's online. It's just unfortunate that that's where a lot of it goes. But it's about this look, like how are you looking? Rather than, are you actually? Because the wisest man often doesn't go around stating all of his wisdom. He's often the most quiet person in the group, right? He's not bragging about all the things that he knows or all the things that he has done. He's listening, he's learning, and he's going to go do that on his own terms and surpass you and the braggadocious influencers every time.
Sorry. Clara wants to know if she can have my iPad after we're done recording Waste No Day.
Of course, honey.
This question could not wait until we got done recording Waste No Day. I'm so proud of her for her jiu-jitsu experience that she's a week into. She's just been an animal and blowing everybody's minds with how aggressive she is. And she wants to be there all the time. And we were concerned with that, signing them up, like whether they'd really be into it or not. So I'm pumped about that. And this is one of those things that I think is going to teach and instill the kind of things that we're talking about early. But anyway, I wanted to make a point on what you're talking about because this has been me so much in 2026. I think that the average person isn't exhausted from work because the average person doesn't actually work that hard. I mean, you can... Maybe I'm talking to you personally who's listening. Maybe I'm not. If you are that person who works extremely hard, can you really look around you and say that everyone in your circle is as well? Or are they putting in a few solid hours of effort in a day and then distracting themselves until they're exhausted the rest of the day. That's the majority of people. And it's me the majority of time until I'm actually working really hard on something. And then I'm like, yeah, no, this is me working really hard. But when you're actually getting something accomplished and winning, you're not that tired. Like I have the wings of angels carrying me through 8 days straight with 3 hours of sleep a night. And how? Like go to sleep at 11, 11:30, 12 o'clock, wake up at 2:30, 3 o'clock, shoot downstairs to the kitchen island to work on something with the tablet and the laptop and the notepad, and then get to the gym at 4:30 and work out, and then to the shop to train the team at 7, and then go through the whole day, and then here on the show at 5:30 p.m., and then record some reels or some advertisements after the show ends till 8:30, whatever it is, and like hang out. And then Amelia goes to sleep. Maybe we watch a little something. And then I'll pop the tablet back open and I'll work for several hours. And then I don't set an alarm for 2:30 or 3. I just wake up with the need to get back to it, right? Because it feels like I'm accomplishing something. So I don't have the desperate need for 7-8 hours of sleep. Feel rested enough and I want to get back to it. And that's what happens when you're actually working hard on something where you're winning. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know, but that's what happens to me. The need for sleep goes down and the need to get this thing finished outweighs it. It just outweighs it. And I think I can sleep 8 hours a night and just spend 4 hours in the evening on my social media accounts answering comments and getting into discussions. And I'm 10 times more tired at the end of that day than I am when I just accomplished something all day in Ben Franklin and Blue Collar Closer and Waste No Day and was a present father to my kids and a present husband to Amelia. I'm not nearly as tired at the end of that day, even though I slept for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I think distraction is much more expensive than we're giving it credit for. I think it's doing a lot more to us than we realize, and we're going to have to figure out how to cut it out of our lives. And don't tell yourself you're doing research by scrolling TikTok, because you're not. You're not learning anything.
That's a good one. I like that.
Well, I bet you don't think I've used that excuse. I'm working here. What do you mean you're working? You're on TikTok. It's research purposes, right?
Recon. Yes, of course.
How is this Dan Martell guy killing it like this? I'm trying to figure this out, right? But it's the apps, it's the social, it's the phones, it's notifications, drama, gossip, the endless love for complaining and being around people who like to complain, and scrolling. And scrolling's just killing us. Winston Churchill said, "You'll never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks." I love that guy.
So Brian, we're getting close to the end of the quote here. I'm going to group a couple of these together. Again, these are habits of what poor people do. And I think some of these are pretty impactful as we wrap it up. They expect things to be easy. They blame anything besides themselves for their problems. They look for one thing to solve all of their problems. You know, I think they go nicely together because there is this element of ease, like everything should be easy.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways, you know, GPT and Claude and all the AIs are like, they're pushing us in that direction, right? They're like, oh, this is so easy. And it does become easy, right? And in America, easier. In America, if you're fortunate enough to live here, I mean, there's a lot of things that are very easy, like turning on the tap to get clean water and taking a shower and driving your leather plush seat car to the gas station to fill up. Like there's a lot of things that are very easy. And we quickly get into this idea, especially again, as you see people online doing things and you have no idea what it took for them to accomplish that, or how many takes it took for them to get that cut, or how many, mess ups that they had to overcome. And just everything looks so easy. And I think half of it is fake, right? Half of the ease is fake. But then the other half is the fact that, like, yes, our modern world has given us a very prime example of a life of ease. And unfortunately, it creates this level of deception that all things should be easy. All things should be just 1-2 step and done. And that, unfortunately, is not the case, especially when it comes to the habits and disciplines that really bring about value. And these other parts of the quote here, where they blame anything besides themselves for their problems, and they look for one thing to solve all their own problems. Again, going back to like ease. Oh, if I finally get this job, everything will be better. If I finally marry this girl, everything will be better. If I finally take the family on this vacation, it will get better. If I finally, write that book or do this thing or whatever, it will all get better. No. In what world does one action solve for your entire life balance? It just doesn't happen. And so I think a lot of these things are really hitting me, of course, between the eyes, but all of us between the ears, in terms of like, what are the things in my life where I'm saying, oh man, if only this, then it would be better. Or why is this so hard? There's got to be an easier way.
Yeah, like Will Durant wrote. And it ties into this easier way, this one fix, one solution fixes all mindset of ease that I think it's going to keep getting worse for every next generation as my 8-year-old grows up, regularly having me, regularly having her use AI. Not to think for, not to solve all her problems, but just I want her to be very familiar with it without being completely dependent on it. And I think it's going to be tough for them, which was why my wife and I have, for the last few months, have talked ad nauseum about the fact that we want the two younger, or 11 and 8-year-old, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I think they have to be 12 to get into Muay Thai, but we're also going to put them into Muay Thai to learn striking. But the jiu-jitsu part is because the first time they step on that mat, they're like crash test dummies on the mat. Like anybody who has the slightest bit of experience can just do anything to them. And it sucks. It's the first time I got on the mat. It was with Justin High, our buddy, who's been on the show right after.
I would not want to face that guy.
Gigantor, they called him in Gracie 717 out there. But he had just won Worlds in Orlando at 205 at Blue Belt. And my first time rolling was with him. Now it was fun because I got to practice the moves with him and stuff. And he was so technically proficient that it made it very easy. But the first time we rolled, he just kind of wrapped me up and did what he wanted and then told me my mistakes. And then second time I'm like, all right, don't hold back, and I'd seen him working out and worked out with him. And I'm like, I feel like I'm probably stronger than him. And I've talked about this before, but I said, he's going to know he rolled with me. Right. And we went, and it was like the harder, Sam Harris talked about this in a really cool YouTube video. He said, seeing someone on the mat with like a black belt or a really experienced jiu-jitsu practitioner is akin to seeing someone drowning. The guy doesn't know how to swim. and he's expending as much energy in that body of water as Michael Phelps is, but he's sinking. And the more energy he expends, the faster he sinks. And I realized rolling with Justin, the harder I tried to like manipulate his arm, the more of myself I gave up for him to be able to put me in a wrist lock, an elbow lock, a freaking arm bar, a rear naked choke, like ankle lock, like any part of my body that I left exposed, he could submit me with. And the harder I pushed, the faster he submitted me over and over and over. And there was literally nothing I could do about it. And Sam Harris is like, that's akin to drowning. He's like, once I learned those moves, I would look back at that version of me and go, how could you not do this? And when you know how to swim and you see a video of someone drowning, you're like, how can he make this furious effort and not just cup his hands and kick his feet, his legs with his feet straight out and just push himself up above the water? But the answer is he doesn't know how. So he's just furiously moving about. And yeah, I don't know how we got on that point, but that is them, the girls, when they first got into the mat in jiu-jitsu. And then I know, because I had my older two in there for a year and a half, and I sat there working most of the time they were in there and watching them go from essentially just meat on that mat, like victims, to where they were tapping people who had been there a lot longer than them from time to time. And they were understanding these traps being set for them, and they didn't fall victim to these traps this time. Like, you're going to need like blue belt skills to tap me now, or maybe purple belt skills or whatever, they got better and better, but it's such a slow progression of getting better that it feels like you'll never get there when you watch two black belts roll on that mat. Cause you're like, it's the most technical thing you've ever seen. But then they show you how to do every one of these moves from the smallest start to the most complex ending. And they make it make sense to you. And then you get on the mat and you practice it over and over and over. And that's how our meetings ended up being set up, like jiu-jitsu training. And that's why it was set up that way, because of jiu-jitsu. So we got them in there in the hopes that they understand they don't have to have an easy button. They just have to be willing to put the time in and to show up every day, even when they suck at it, even when it's embarrassing, knowing that around the corner is a belt. Around the corner is you submitting the person who made you feel like helpless, right? It is you having a defense for that offense. So Will Durant wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit, right? And everybody wants to become excellent by reading a book, listening to a podcast, or watching a YouTube video. And if you listen to Will Durant, excellence is a habit. Excellence is something you do over and over and over and over again. And eventually, whatever the result is kind of comes and goes while you're just focusing on being excellent. That thing you wanted so badly, it just happens to you. I think it was Mike Kozak I was talking to about this, said when he first joined Blue Collar Closer and went to a boot camp, he was thinking, man, if I could just do a $40,000 revenue month, like all my financial woes would be over. And he just recently did his first 100,000 revenue month. And he's like,
shout out my man.
And he's like, I got to spend more time in the classroom in Blue Collar Closer. Like, I got to get this up to 200. It's like, yeah, I know. Believe me, I know. Like, every milestone I've hit, I thought that was the one that was going to make me not need milestones anymore. You're just like, no, that's not how life works, man. We want the next one and the next one and the next one. So,
no. Well, Brian, we're wrapping things up here. I'm going to read the quote again from Hormozi one more time. And there's two sentences at the end we haven't commented on yet. So here we go. Instead of trying to get rich, try to not be poor. This is what poor people do. Start many projects, finish none. They think that understanding the basics and doing the basics are the same thing. They assume friends will act like friends when it comes to money. They make promises, then break them, especially to themselves. They assume anyone making money is smarter than them or somehow got a head start that they didn't have. They're easily distracted. They prioritize looking smart over acting smart. And they think that asking for help means that they are helpless. They expect things to be easy. They trust people they know blindly. They blame anything besides themselves for their problems. They look for one thing to solve all of their problems. They believe their own BS. And to top it all off, they get married to someone who spends more money than they make. It's those last two statements that we'll close out on. They believe their own BS. And to top it all off, they get married to someone who spends more money than they make. Alex Hormozi.
I don't remember where this one fit, but I want to say it. Shakespeare wrote, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves." Right? And I assume that was like an astrology thing where my lucky star is not pumping out luck anymore or whatever. You know, it's like, the star didn't do it, bro. You just didn't work that hard on this one. That's what I've always taken that quote to mean. But the moment we take ownership and say it's my fault, we gain the power over the situation. And the moment it's dispatch's fault, management's fault, marketing's fault, my wife's fault, my parents' fault, we give the power to someone else. And someone else, whoever you just named as you were thinking of the person whose fault it is, they don't care about you. They're not in this life to make sure that you're successful. Now, if it's parents, if it's dispatcher, manager, friend, whatever, they probably hope you do well, but do you think they're going to put in the time and effort to make sure? That's where believing your own BS comes in. You solidify that blame game by buying into your own nonsense. And this is probably the most dangerous one of all. I've been there many times. The stories, the excuses, the reasons why it's not my fault. Richard Feynman said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person for you to fool. Because brutal honesty changes lives. It's the biggest thing in addiction. The biggest issue with addicts, the majority of people who are addicts, is they would not admit for a second that they couldn't live without their substance. Not for 1 second. They will not admit that they're addicted. Meanwhile, their future, their career, their life, all these big plans they ran around bragging about for all these years, they're spiraling, they're circling the drain, or they're not doing anything. And they won't let whatever the addiction is go, or even admit that the addiction could have something to do with it, right? Or they have all this licked and they chose or choose or are going to choose the wrong spouse. And I would say friend circle every bit as much as this one, but one disciplined spouse and one reckless spouse are rowing in opposite directions. They're in a canoe. One's rowing this way, one's rowing the other way. And they're just going in a circle. A saver and a spender are building two different futures, right? An investor and a waster are building two different homes. Warren Buffett said, one of the most important decisions you'll ever make is who you marry. So choose carefully, because you'll live with the consequences forever. Most people spend their whole lives trying to get rich. And maybe, I don't know that it's the wrong goal, but maybe it's only half the goal. Maybe the better question is, What habits am I learning? What habits am I practicing every single day that are keeping me poor? And can I change these habits ever so slightly to just not stay poor, to not do the things that people who spend their lives in poverty do? And I don't mean poverty just financially. I do mean financially, but I mean bankrupt marriages, bankrupt families, bankrupt careers, bankrupt freaking ambitions. Like you said, you were going to set the world on fire, bro. What have you done? What have these years amounted to? Where are you at? Cut your excuses. Cut out the distractions. Sever yourself from this victim mindset that it's everyone else's fault. You're not where you want to be. Start finishing the unfinished projects. Go back in time. The further back you go, the easier they're going to be, right? These little tiny projects that we were trying to do 10 years ago, with what you know now, they're probably nothing. But when you start stacking wins and these little unfinished projects, you're going to feel like a champ. And you're not going to run out of energy. Losers get tired. Winners don't run out of energy. They just keep working and they keep winning, and it gives them all the sleep they need. Keep promises to yourself. Keep promises to you. The most important person you're going to make promises to. Because you have to know yourself as a person who keeps promises. And love them or hate them, one of the richest men in the history of the world, Bill Gates, said, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and wildly underestimate what they can do in 10.
It's a great place to leave it, Brian. And I think it's been a great dissection of the quote. Thank you, Mr. Hormozi, for giving us plenty of content to talk about tonight. And let us know what you found most impactful about this episode, or about that quote that hit you between the eyes or between the ears, depending. And of course, we'd love to hear from you. How are you going to change it? And how are you going to focus on something else, or change the way that you're doing things? Build a new habit, create a new discipline, water that plant, and get some roots in the ground. We'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this episode, share it around for somebody who thinks, or who you think would also enjoy hearing it. And of course, if you're looking for a new habit or a new discipline to start, no better place than bluecollarcloser.com, where you can invest in yourself. Stop believing those lies that you keep telling yourself and actually start doing some change. Be the change.
I don't have time. I wanted to be in there, but I just don't have time.
Which brings us to...
I'll be like, bro, are you pumped for the new House of the Dragon season 3? Oh, dude, I can't wait. We just rewatched season 1 and 2 to get ready for it. But I don't have time. Shut up.
Oh, yeah. Well, that brings us to our weekly challenge, which continues to be the same, and even more so with this quote: to choose to wake up each and every morning and waste no day.